Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Jam's Rock Talk. I'm Mark. This is my brother Jim. And joining us today, a student of mine who we've referred to a few times in the past. This is John, and he's coming in to talk about Radiohead along with us. And our discussion today is going to be an unusual one because I'm not a big fan of Radiohead. These guys are going to try to convince me otherwise. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right into this conversation. I'm going to let John take the lead here, and he's just going to kind of give a little intro to the band so we're all on the same page, and then we'll just kind of go in from there.
Okay.
All right, John. Take it away.
I don't know. Maybe Jim might know, but Radiohead's just like a band from like the 80s, like not early 90s to like mid 90s, basically. They started off in like college, I believe. They all lived in like the same town, and they would like play at like clubs and stuff. I think they were named like on like a day of week, like their old band name, because they would only play on like Fridays or something. So they would just I don't remember how they got up in the like the industry, but they would drop like EPs and stuff, and they weren't that popular until they dropped their single Creep, which everybody knows, really popular song. That album is not really like well regarded by like critics because of all the other albums they dropped, because all the other albums they dropped were pretty insane. But Pablo Honey, the album that they dropped Creep on, people don't really look back at it, but Creep is really, really big now. And they went to go drop the Bends, and then they would evolve into OK Computer, which is widely regarded, especially now by like younger people today, as like the best rock album of all time. I bet you guys don't really consider it that way, but a lot of like young people love that album, like really love that album. And you would
It's
think
one
they
of
would
the more famous albums. I think that's probably the one that
yeah.
resonates with everybody because it's
Yeah.
probably the most mainstream. Would you say that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And after that, you would think they would drop more rock material, because right now they're the best band in the world. Like 1995, I believe they were basically the almost most popular band in the world. They would take a extreme like left turn and drop an electronic album called Kid A. Nobody saw it coming. And it's basically my favorite Radiohead album. People might say it's like kind of amateur for electric, like it's an electric album kind of, but they dropped guitars on it. It was like a lot of computer focused, electronic focused music, and after that they would just drop more like melodic experimental stuff. I wouldn't say insanely experimental, but like for like their like niche, their genre, it was pretty experimental. More notable albums are like In Rainbows, A Moon-Shaped Pool. Those are my favorite after Kid A. But they dropped a lot, and now they're kind of like they haven't dropped in a while, but they're still making good music, and all the other the bandmates are just doing their own thing now. So I think they're pretty good.
That's a good roundup of their history.
Yeah.
They actually started in high school. They would actually get together down in the band room they were in England, so they
I
were
remember.
designated for music, and they would get together and play. And then they kind of disbanded when many of the members went off to college, and then they reformed in college. And then
I think it's notable to mention that one of the guitar players and the bass player are brothers.
Yeah.
Don and Colin Greenwood.
Yeah.
Greenwood.
Yeah.
So I think that's got to be mentioned there because they're the mainstays within the band throughout. So from 1985 at the inception when they came in and to this current time frame, still producing the music and writing and everything else. So,
but I think John touched on the fact that each of their albums kind of evolved from, and it was never something that they just continued doing the same thing. Their first couple albums could be considered more in the grunge realm and alternative rock.
I was going to say, this is a good point. Let's just pause here for a moment and kind of just talk about that for a second, because I think this is why I'm not a big fan, is because, I'm a big fan of music that has a very I like rhythm, and I like a melody to be behind that rhythm. and I like that structure that's cohesive. I don't mind dissonance within it, but at the same time, these guys have been labeled grunge, alternative, but they themselves find them. They gravitate when they write. They say more towards jazz and the influence of jazz. And I can see that. I understand that because they do a lot of, it seems like what I call improv on some of their music because of that experimental part where it just kind of, it weaves through.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's improv. It's more experimental.
I know that's
It's
probably
been worked out. I mean, it may have started as improvisations in the studio, but I think it was highly
Refined.
structured by the time it hit a record.
Yeah. I think it was like more refined by the time like they would put it out. And I think like because if you look at Kid A and the album they released after that, which is called I believe what is it? Amnesiac. They did have a lot of throwaway songs and a lot of songs that you would think like these two albums sound completely different, but they were from the same sessions.
For a second, John, when you say throwaway, what are you referring to?
Like I'm saying, like songs that couldn't make the original cut, like the original album that they were supposed to be on.
So in other words, they had studio tracks that they didn't incorporate.
And they just put it on another album, and they sound completely different. You wouldn't think that they came from the same sessions that made one album.
Yeah.
So they do refine it a lot.
So and
so how do you guys
back
feel
to OK
like
Computer?
Going back to jazz. I mean,
there's jazz elements. I mean, they create so many different styles.
Yeah.
And jazz was just one small part of it.
Yeah.
Even on every album, it's like it goes all over the place.
So, I think the first two albums were kind of working things out. They were
exactly
happened to hit a big with Creep. And you listen to interviews now with the band members, and particularly Tom York, can't stand the song. They refuse to.
They absolutely hate it.
They're so far removed from that. But that's what got their name on the map. And then OK Computer came out, and there's a reason why it's considered one of the top records ever made in the popular field, whether we call it a rock album or whatever. I think there's the thing that I think sets Radiohead apart from many other bands, and I kind of group them in with more of a progressive type of genre, is that you go back and listen to, I'd say from OK Computer on, you can listen every time you sit down and listen. You hear something new or different, or there's so many layers and so many aspects to it that it's not just a simple pop tune that's being laid down. There's so many elements that are happening and you can't take them all in one listen. Mm-hmm. And I think they expanded on that as they progressed past OK Computer. Now, Mark, you had a chance to you sat down and listened to OK Computer.
Really?
I've listened to it, but I've also listened to their last album, and I really struggled to get through half of it. To be fair, I listened to the first 6 tracks. Track 2 and track 6 were okay; they were at least listenable to me. Beyond those tracks, I really was like, oh, I was.
There's a reason for that though. That's like their probably least listenable album, not in a bad way.
I know we both talked about this in class, John, and when I was telling you about this a couple weeks ago, but I still, to me, an album that stands the test of time. There's a reason it stands the test of time. But what kills me is 2011, Radiohead was one of the best-selling bands in the world. They sold over 30 million records worldwide. I'm like blown away by that number, first off. Second, Rolling Stone magazine lists them in their top 500 greatest albums of all time. I'm like,
yeah.
But not just, it's like 5 records, they say 5 of their albums are in their in the top 500. I'm like, how? It's
a lot of young people.
500 albums, but Radiohead definitely would not be on any of the.
And I think
I can find 500 albums very easily that would fit my scheme of things.
But I'll add on to what I was saying earlier, that I think with Radiohead, not only are there multiple layers of listening available, but John mentioned that a lot of young people gravitate. I think equally a lot of older music
Yeah.
listeners gravitate to it. I know a lot of people my age who
Hold on,
love
I'm your age.
Radiohead, who just love what they put out. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's a certain maybe sophistication, if you will, that people are maybe trying to latch onto. I don't know, but and unfortunately,
would it be safe to say-
they haven't put anything out since 2016, since that last album.
Yeah. Except some of the members of the band, they I think Tom York, Colin Greenwood, and another person, they made like their own like separate band, and they dropped they made another album, which was pretty good.
Or something like that.
Well, they've all done side
Sure.
projects.
Yeah.
And sometimes like one or two together from Radiohead with others. I know, like for me, Johnny Greenwood, I see him as this incredible
Yeah, me too.
all-around musician. He has
Yeah.
gone on and scored soundtracks for films.
Yeah. He's insane.
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff in the.
He's behind a lot of the music theory and a lot of the a lot of the orchestra. Like I don't know the exact terms for it, but just a lot
the
of
orchestration, the arrangements of
for music, because he's like one of the more I think he's one of the only people on the band who like actually studied music theory. So
yeah.
He's pretty good at just making music in general.
Yeah.
Well, I can't take away any of their achievements. That's for certain. There's obviously millions of people who love the music that they produce. It's just for me, I go back to what I said originally. The melody is not there for me it has to carry throughout a piece of music for me. And that's just me. I'm just saying that. Now, I was going to say this earlier, would you put a band like the Talking Heads into the same category as Radiohead?
Well, so it's interesting that you bring up Talking Heads, because David Byrne, I was reading in some of my research, was a catalyst for Radiohead. They was an influence in some regards to them. And I would not put them in the same category, but they're very. But I'm also thinking they're apples and oranges when comparing them. You can, Talking Heads is a very different kind of music.
I didn't like the Talking Heads when they first came out.
What?
Very much into them. But today, I can sit down and listen to the Talking Heads, and they're more melodic and they're more structured in terms of what type of music I like to listen to. They are, I think, a fairly sophisticated band in terms of like their experimentation with sounds.
And what's interesting, Talking Heads were originally considered a punk band. They were considered punk.
I didn't know that.
They when they developed in the mid to late 70s, they were playing at CBGB's, which was the epicenter of punk music in New York.
But we didn't have the term alternative rock either at that time.
Yeah. And they became more of what I would consider to be alternative rock. And I would say that Radiohead started out in the alternative rock realm and went on from there and outgrew alternative rock.
Yeah, you can't really put them in one category.
Yeah, you cannot.
They have multiple labels, and I don't even know if they can label themselves, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
I heard
what kind of discussions have the two of you had in previously about this?
He said he doesn't like Radiohead because they're sad boys. One time he was
sad boys.
They are very down. They're so slow and just sad. And
that's because you listen to A Moon-Shaped Pool, which is like their lowest point in their life. At least Tom York, the lead singer. So I would guess, I guess, but they are they can actually get really depressing, on some tracks, tracks
listen to Coldplay or something like that, but I don't want to. Music is supposed to be uplifting, and I get it. Not every genre of music.
But not all music should be uplifting.
Yeah, that's subjective. I feel like
I get that, but at the same time, music brings a feeling or an emotion out in every person, right? So I suppose when I'm listening to music, I just want to always be upbeat about it.
I get that. Yeah. You just want to listen to like when you're listening to music, you want to feel upbeat, and Radiohead doesn't really bring that to you, I guess. There are upbeat
I'm
Radiohead
already in a
songs.
down mood and I'm looking for a pick me up. So why would I want to throw on a piece of music that's going to down further?
But there's the opposite side. People are looking for music, or looking to music for comfort.
Yeah.
And to mirror the kinds of emotions they are feeling, whether it's upbeat or sad or whatever, anger, whatever the case is. I mean, they also have angry music, and why do people listen to some heavy metal? Because it allows them to feel the anger and kind of get in touch with it.
Yeah, an outlet.
I'd rather they do that than to take it out in other ways. I mean, I think Radiohead, they have such a large catalog, and I think, you've heard a lot of their down stuff, but like John just said, they also have a lot of up stuff. They have a lot of, they run the gamut, like most great bands do. So that's interesting. Okay.
Albums like In Rainbows, there's so much like uplifting. It's just like there's a aura in that album where this is like a top rated album by rated, what is it called, like websites where people go on and like rate it.
Yeah.
Like websites like Rhyme, they rate this album like one of the best albums of all time, like top albums of all time. You see Radiohead in the top 3 like all the time. And
that's very hard for me to understand.
Yeah,
John,
it's because it's like young people running the website.
Yeah. So John, let me ask you this: what drew you to Radiohead initially?
So I found out about it from them. I never heard Creep before, like, believe it or not. Like, I found out about them like 3 years ago, I think. Okay. And
do you remember what song was your first?
It was No Surprises. No Surprises off the OK Computer album.
Okay.
That song was really like touching to me. And I guess it is a sad song, but it was really like just calming. It was really chill. And then I listened to that and Weird Fishes / Arpeggi for a while, and then I would just listen to those 2 songs, and I just kept growing. They just kept growing on me, and I listened to Kid A in full. I listened to OK Computer in full. I have their CDs, vinyls, everything.
Oh wow, okay, good.
But In Rainbows, I feel like you would like In Rainbows, Mark. Like it's a really uplifting album. There is some like slow moments, but it has a lot of rhythm. There is melody, and like it's more there. I feel like In Rainbows is probably their most accessible album for everybody, in my opinion.
That's a good evaluation. That's a fair assessment. I have to give it a listen, just to be fair.
Yeah.
I hate judging a band just on one song or 2 songs alone, especially when they have a full body or repertoire of work spanning decades.
Literally. Oh, yeah.
Just like Jim said, like, especially when they're so versatile and they have so much layers. Like, each album.
I'm like an old dog trying to learn new tricks. I'm always out looking for new, right? But even though I've been aware of Radiohead for years and years, and it's just something I've never like clicked onto. I mean, Jim, you and I have talked about this over the years that, I feel like I have expanded musically. I'll give you a perfect example. And I mentioned this in some video long ago, Tears for Fears, right? When I was in high school, Tears for Fears, that was like, no, you don't listen to that band. That was right up there with REO Speedwagon. Okay. So I was awakened to the reality watching them live on a program on PBS, and I was like blown away. And I could not believe that these guys who I thought made stupid videos and was horrible music, I listened to them live, and it was more blues based. They could jam. They knew how to play their instruments. There was no autotune. They were just a tight band playing with heart. And I was blown away. And ever since then, I started listening more to Tears for Fears. And to this day, I've opened my whole mindset to that. That's just one example. Same with Talking Heads. I didn't care for Talking Heads originally. I've allowed that to kind of grow into my repertoire a little bit more. It's just, Radiohead just does not cut.
Does
not cut the mustard for me.
And that's true of any music. It's not going to, music is not one type of music is not going to resonate with everybody.
Right. And that's why there's so many genres out there. Let me ask you a question, John. How many people have you influenced to listen to Radiohead?
A lot, like, more than
Yeah.
I thought I would. Like, and they're all like people my age. Like a lot of your students, especially, yeah, like a lot of. I wouldn't say like, and like I'm exaggerating probably, but like more than I think I would, because I went throughout like. I like to recommend music to people, and they usually either just brush it off, or they don't really go into like an artist's or an act's discography like Radiohead has. I've never recommended somebody like a band or an artist, and they like go through like all of their albums like Radiohead. So I think that speaks to like what they make.
So people you have, people your age that you have talked to have have been willing to listen and you found that they enjoy what they've heard.
Like just like I never had somebody like, hey, check out this song, and then be like, this song is really good, and then like on their own go into like their albums, some of their other songs. I've never recommended them like to go check out. Like that usually never really happens with me, to be honest.
So, John, as we are getting near the end of our discussion here, based on your knowing Mark and discussions with Mark, do you think he has opened his mind a little bit more towards Radiohead, or you still need to work on him?
I definitely think he still needs to open his mind a little bit, but I think he has opened his mind a little bit at least right now, because he kind of went out of his way to listen to OK Computer, and he got a bad first impression with a moon-shaped pool, which is a really bad move.
It is what it is, but I mean,
so which album would you recommend he listen to next?
Definitely In Rainbows. Either that or The Bends, which is more, and the Bends is more of the OK Computer style, but they went like less experimental. And which I think might appeal to Mark, and In Rainbows, which is not really, it's kind of like a odd egg out, I guess, in their discography. Like not really, because the album they released before that, The Thief, was like kind of a precursor to In Rainbows. But it's not like anything they dropped before The Thief, like basically, like doesn't sound like any alternative like rock that they dropped before that. And it's just really a really melodic and peaceful album, and there's barely any like negative emotion on there. Like maybe the lyrics, I guess, can like say that there is like some, but like it's just more of like an emotional experience for me, at least. So I think you should listen to either Today or The Bends.
I have to ask this question, John, and you just talked about lyrics. When you listen to not just Radiohead, but any music that you listen to, listen to the lyrics, or do you listen to the music, or do you try to do both?
This is actually a good question, Chip. For me, I prefer the sound over the lyrics, or just like the acoustic nature of it. I like the music sonically. Not to say that I don't appreciate the lyrics, or like I don't pay attention to them, because I do. I do. Yeah, you too, Mark. I like
when I listen to, I'm always hooked in by the music first, and then I sit down and I try to read or listen to the lyrics more intently.
Me too. Yeah.
Speaking, you're not 100% like focused on the music.
Like I find myself just reading instead of like listening to the music when I'm trying to listen to the lyrics.
Yeah.
I like to focus more on the sonic nature of sounds.
Yeah.
Are you the opposite, Jim?
No, I'm the same way. I zero in on the sonic aspects of it. And in fact, I kind of look at lyrics as part of the sonic makeup, not the meaning of the words, the lyrics. I look at it as it is part of the overall sound of it. And there are certain words that jump out, but I consider that part almost like percussion that are different kind of rhythm underneath.
Yeah.
Whereas some people really gravitate to the meaning of the lyrics, and that's their draw. Whereas that's why, and I ask that of my students all the time as well, that, what do you gravitate towards? What is it about a song that pulls you in?
Yeah.
And what's interesting too, and I was just researching this just a little bit earlier, that Tom York went to, he started off with more conventional lyrics, but as their albums progressed, he actually did a thing where he had words and he would cut them up. And
you would pick it out of a hat for Kid A.
Yeah, or just do random words. So that's that idea where the lyrics may not have a meaning.
It sounds like he's writing. They want you to focus on the music.
Yeah, it was using the words as another instrument.
Yeah,
adding another layer of sonic interest. And
he did that for Kid A because he wanted the album to sound more robotic. Like that was like the whole point of the album, just to sound like devoid of human emotion.
Right. Yeah.
And I think this brings up another interesting topic that I was talking with Mark before. It's the topic of if Autotune is good or not. Because
I had this conversation before.
Before I say, John, what is your take on that?
To me, I don't think Autotune is bad. I think it's bad when you use it as a crutch, and for you, because of your lack of talent, you need to use Autotune to sound good. But I think it's good. I think it's really good because some people use it not as a crutch, but as like a tool to enhance what they're saying. Not what they're saying,
I've heard it both ways. I've heard it both ways.
The more sonic element.
Yeah,
I get that though.
It
enhances the sonic.
I have to agree with that. I think it can be used as a very interesting tool, like any other, like reverb and anything else that's in a studio.
I think it's fair to say, Jim, that you need to know this, that John does actually his own music, and it's all digital, electronic. So both you guys have that similarity going for each of you. You both like the experimental, you like the electronic stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas I am so divested from all of that because, well, I'm not a musician, number one. But having played music, having played instruments, having been on a stage, I've done all of that. Music to me is defined by, what you actually do as the musician.
Yeah.
I don't like gimmicks. If you make a mistake live in a concert, that's human nature. You make a mistake. You hit a bad note. Okay,
I agree.
Past it. Autotune has tried to make the music industry perfect. That's not what I want.
Well, and that's where it has gone in some cases too far. I mean, there are definitely cases where where it has been, it's so thick that it actually detracts from the song. But I think used judiciously, it can be very effective. And if you are purposely using it as a specific tool for whatever the song needs, then I think that it's good. But yeah, I mean, and to be quite honest, I mean, unless you're really, really paying attention, it's hard to hear it on a lot of things out there. But there are, so you don't know what's being auto-tuned. But I have no problem with it as long as it's,
me too,
done appropriately and in the spirit of, if it's part of the song, great. If it's used to help strengthen the song.
Tell us a horrible person's voice because they can't sing a lick.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are some people who
shouldn't be in the music industry.
They're being made stars because of their look, and they're being overly processed in the studio.
Yeah, that's when it's taken too far
to make that happen. But I think most artists, if they use it, they're trying to use it subtly just to kind of help strengthen whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then underground lanes and hip hop, they use a lot of it to the point where it just sounds harsh. And that's basically kind of the sound of it. They're not using it at that point. They're not even using it to help it sound better.
That's a good question for you. Would you say that autotune has become in the last couple of years the go-to sound in a lot of music genres that teenagers listen to today?
Oh, I wouldn't say I would say it's become Oh yeah, like because a lot of teenagers they just listen to like a lot of hip hop, and I don't listen to a lot of pop or modern day rock. I guess I just listen to a lot of alternative rock. But today, like with pop and hip hop, yes, there is an insane amount of auto tune, some good, some bad,
Yep.
and especially in hip hop, a lot of autotune is just like I guess there are some people who don't use autotune, but if you go deeper into like the underground of hip hop, which is what I usually listen to, they use autotune like a lot, and it does help, yes, but sometimes they use a lot of it, like a lot of it, to the point where it's like you're not using it to fix your voice, you're using it as like your voice as like a genuine instrument to like enhance the song. Sometimes it sounds really bad, but sometimes it sounds really good. So I honestly don't think autotune is like as bad a thing that you think it is, unless it's like what you said, like just you can't sing, so don't use it. Like it's just not really needed. Just don't sing if you can.
This is a whole topic.
Yeah.
So we could get into that rabbit hole real fast,
But,
right there.
Tom York doesn't use autotune, so
there you go. Yeah, there
That's
you
good.
go.
Keep it like that.
So why don't we wrap this conversation up? I think we have a lot of interesting points here, and I guess the final verdict is:
You have not swayed me from
is Radiohead worth people's time, and is it worth Mark's time?
Probably not worth my time, but definitely other people should gravitate towards it and should continue listening. I am never going to be that naysayer to decide where I take away from the band's achievements, because that's not.
And anybody that's coming to this video that maybe has never heard Radiohead, I think a lot of what we talked about, that gives you points of entry.
I agree.
To check it out. Check them out.
I agree, definitely.
Well, if you have an interest in Radiohead and you want to get in on this conversation where we stirred your imagination a little bit, awesome. And if we stirred it up even more with the auto-tune controversy, stay tuned.
Or lyrics over music or music over
music. We touched on a lot of
we have about 3 different threads going on in here.
But with that being said, I would like to thank John for coming on today.
Thank you,
No
John.
problem. Thank you guys for having me on. I really had fun
definitely
with this.
like having a younger person's perspective on music that's been around longer than you've been alive. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I enjoy talking about it.
If you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. We always like comments as well. Leave some behind. We always read them if you leave them. But I'm Mark. This is Jim, my brother, and John. Thank you again. This is one of my students.
Thank you.
We are Rock Talk, Jams Rock Talk. Enjoy your day. Enjoy this video, and come back and see us again. All right, everybody. Have a great one. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.